We have some breaking news as Frank Vogel was just fired as the Phoenix Suns head coach. And with this team having some speculation with their coaching job over the last couple of days, we finally have a decision, and we're going to dive in how impactful this is for this Suns squad. But before we dive in on all of this Frank Vogel news for you guys, we'd like to let you know that 96% of you guys are not subscribed. So we'd greatly appreciate it if you guys hit that subscribe button, as we are the place for daily Phoenix Suns videos. We're breaking this right as it comes out, so if you want to make sure you stay up to date on daily content, hit that subscribe button as we push for 1,000 subscribers. Without further ado, though, let's dive into the video at hand. Make sure to grab a snack, as it's going to be a jam-packed episode. And like I mentioned in the introduction, the topic at hand today is discussing Frank Vogel fired, as we saw from Adrian Wojnarowski this afternoon. ESPN sources, the Phoenix Suns have dismissed Frank Vogel. The Suns, who won 49 regular season games with the league's third highest paid role and taxed, were swept in an opening round series versus the Timberwolves. Mike Budenholzer will be prominent in part of the search, and this is not good for Phoenix Suns fans. Now, obviously, Frank Vogel come in, was a defensive-minded coach, was supposed to, work this team, kind of get everything going with them, and he didn't. He got them to 49 wins, but this team was never really fully healthy, didn't have all the intangibles to play with because they were so high into that tax apron, and ultimately, I don't believe that it is Frank Vogel's fault. Like Adrian Wojnarowski said, the Suns will hire a third head coach in 3 years, now after Frank is ousted in his first season of his contract. Now, obviously, they had Monty Williams 2 years ago. They let go of him, had Frank Vogel this season. Now they're done with him. So now this will be the third coach of the Phoenix Suns in 3 years, like Adrian Wojnarowski just stated. And if we want to look at Twitter, some people like Jonathan Van Tobel think he is the scapegoat for this whole entire thing. As Frank Vogel, in the playoffs, didn't really have the greatest adjustments with this Phoenix Suns team, in my honest opinion. Didn't adjust till late game 3, and then game 4, used some of his adjustments, bringing out Okogie, bringing out, guys in Bol and using Royce O'Neal a little bit more. But if we want to look at the shooting splits for this team, clearly they needed some adjustments. Clearly they needed some new offense. Clearly they needed some new things around them in the playoffs. But looking at the regular season, offensively rating pretty solid compared to the rest of the league. Obviously having Kevin Durant, Bradley Booker, and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, you would expect them to be a top offensive team in the NBA. And then looking at their defense, in the middle of the pack as well. Obviously not as high as they were offensively, but still a solid team in the metrics here. So ultimately, is this the smart decision for the Phoenix Suns? In one of our latest videos, we broke down how the Phoenix Suns were supposedly wanting to keep Frank Vogel, and the word on the street was that they were going to fire everybody else in the front office, in the head coaching, in the coaching staff, besides Frank, and give him a whole new coaching staff. Ultimately, though, we have been waiting a couple of days, anticipating this type of decision from the Phoenix Suns. Was it going to be Frank Vogel fired? Was it going to, be him being brought back and being thrown around with a whole new coaching staff? But we finally, ladies and gentlemen, have our answer with this Suns team. It's going to be a new head coach. Kevin Durant had already expressed his discomfort in this offense, feeling like he was just a corner scorer, felt like he wasn't utilized perfectly, and the Suns front office heard that. Even though Frank Vogel felt confident after that Game 4 loss, losing to the Timberwolves, saying he knew Matt Ishbia, him and Matt Ishbia had some good personnel, and that he felt confident he was going to be back. Unfortunately for Frank Vogel, it is not that case, as he is being let go by this Suns team. And as we dive in and look at this, is this good? Is this the smart decision? Did the Phoenix Suns ultimately get the guy who screwed them over? Was Frank Vogel the reason why that this Suns team did not do as great as everybody anticipated? Ultimately, I don't believe so. I think that Frank Vogel could be a major contribution to it with, his late game antics in the postseason, not making some adjustments and not really finding out what this team needed. But ultimately, I do believe that all of this goes and falls on the owner and the GM for building and constructing this roster. When trading for Kevin Durant, when trading for Bradley Beal, they already had an expensive roster, looking to move off DeAndre Ayton, looking to move off of Chris Paul. And then when doing in those trades is they brought back salary that they could not move now in Bradley Beal, who's on a no-trade clause with the Phoenix Suns, is making $50 million a year last season, only playing around in 50 of the games. Making $1 million for playing in a game is absolutely crazy to think. And the fact that he doesn't even have to play all of the games to make up that money is just absolutely ridiculous. Now, Frank Vogel, like I mentioned, didn't make the greatest adjustments in the playoffs. But if we want to look at the stats, he was a good defensive coach, led this team defensively. Obviously, they didn't have their full, complete roster in the beginning of the season, having some, guys like Shemes Metu and Yuta Watanabe and stuff like that at their end of their rotation. But once getting Royce O'Neal and then, kind of just finding out what they had in rhythm, they were pretty solid on the defensive side. And looking offensively, like I mentioned, they had their guys like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant really step up in the regular season, just in the playoffs, looking at these shooting splits, looking at those shooting numbers. It was just absolutely atrocious shooting from three-point range. And now we're seeing the Timberwolves, take care of this Denver Nuggets team. It's kind of, not maybe as frustrated with this Phoenix squad and what they were able to accomplish, but ultimately getting swept, getting disrespected like that after especially sweeping this Minnesota Timberwolves in the regular season series definitely has to hurt. And like we mentioned, Frank Vogel now being canned, being out. Who is going to be the replacement for the Phoenix Suns? Who is going to come in here and be this new life? I've seen a lot of people talk on the Reddit how they want a new, young, inexperienced head coach to kind of get these guys going. It was said that Frank Vogel could not get the veterans going, could not get this locker room to believe in him. But maybe a new, spunky, offensive-minded head coach could be that guy that could bring this culture, could bring some nice, fun stuff to Phoenix with Kevin Durant, with Bradley Beal, with Devin Booker, with this squad, really tapping into those untapped potential guys on the bench. And truly, I think that this team can still be a competitor in the Western Conference. I know Matt Ishbia believes in this team. He is saying that they are just a little bit off from winning a championship. And with guys like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker having those fantastic 1A and 1B guys, if you can get those key roster guys around the edges, I truly think it will work. In one of our latest videos, we broke down who we would like to see the Phoenix Suns get after some way too early predictions on some key rotational players. If you guys missed that video, check that out. My boy CJ Pierre is going to be having another video either coming out later today or tomorrow, breaking down some potential head coaches that the Suns should go after, looking at 5 potential guys that he likes. So if you guys want to make sure you stay up to date on that, make sure you stay up to date on everything Phoenix Suns. You guys got to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned with this channel, as like I mentioned, this is going to be the key place for you to get daily Phoenix Suns news, and right when it drops, ladies and gentlemen. Like I mentioned, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Do you guys think it was Frank Vogel's fault? Do you believe that he deserves to be fired, that he was the reason that this Suns team wasn't built to perfection? If they bring in a new coach, they can change things up. Or are you agreeing with Jonathan Van Tobel, calling Frank Vogel the scapegoat, kind of on my side, blaming a guy in James Jones for kind of putting this roster together, acquiring Bradley Beal, and not having that point guard, not having that center, not having those wing depth that this Suns team truly needs to be a competent basketball squad? We'll have to see what the Suns do with their going in their head coach. Who will they hire? Who will they be bringing in? We'll have all that to break down for you guys. I'm Bruce Veliz. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Suns Digest, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and go Phoenix Suns.